Hey friends, Randy Flickinger here again with another story I wanted to share with you. This, I've got to tell you up front, not my story. This is something I stole off of the internet, off of Facebook. So if you've heard it or seen it, awesome, share it with other people. But it's so tremendous, I just felt like I needed to share it on TikTok here and YouTube and let other people hear it if they hadn't seen it. It is not my story, but it's something that's being shared freely on the internet, so I assume that I'm allowed to do that as well. As I've told many of you before, my life goes back into basketball for one thing. Basketball in my hand, I did okay. I did well enough to make college. It paid for 2 years of my school. I think I probably had chances to play after that, but I had met my wife. I knew that it was God's way of saying, Randy, this has a time and it's ended. So in my hands, it was okay. And yet in the hands of LeBron or Michael Jordan or Joel Embiid on my favorite Philly Sixers team, this is worth 50, 60 million a year. I didn't get that. I got a couple years of college paid for. That was it. But shows you whose hand it in makes a difference. Football, I played football too. I was an all-league tight end in high school and had some chances to play college football until they found out that I only weighed 161 pounds. And they said, you're too small. But, in the hands of Aaron Rodgers, for example, or Peyton Manning, or the Eagles quarterback right now, and my mind draws a blank. That's what happens when you get old. It's worth millions of dollars to the right people that can kick it, that can catch it, can run with it, can throw it. But to me, in my hands, not too much. I think about even a stick or a rod like this. In my hands, I can whack something, or I can, plant it in the ground, or I do something decorative with it. But the bottom line is, in the hands of Moses, God's servant, it was something that literally could part the Red Sea and allow, from what we can tell, roughly 2.5 million people to leave Egypt and go on to the Promised Land in the hands of a servant of God. In his hands alone, nothing. Mine, nothing. Think about the slingshot David used. I had a slingshot when I was a kid. We got pretty good with that. We had some fun with it. A wrist rock is what we used to call it. But I'm thinking about in the hands of a 12 or 13-year-old young boy, a future king called David, God's servant again, who said, hey, all you older Jews, you need to have some guts. We need to have some faith. In the hands of God, this weapon will take down Goliath, and it did. See, it just depends on who that slingshot's hands, who's it in? Whose hands is it in? And, I think about the story about the fishes and loaves. 2 fish and 5 loaves would feed me a great meal. I'd have some bread left over I could share. But in Jesus' hands, those 2 fish and 5 loaves fed 5,000 men. And we know historically that means there had to be spouses, there had to be children, there were young people around because they got the 2 loaves and fishes from a young boy. And so there was probably 25,000 people that he fed and left 12 baskets empty to be filled up with the leftovers in Jesus' hands. In my hands, it's a meal for one. In his hands, it's enough for 20 or 25,000 and leftovers for several more. You're starting to get the idea here? In God's hands, things are much different than in ours. If I took 2 nails and I used them, I could put 1 sheet of shingles on my roof. I might be able to build a birdhouse or nail a couple boards together, but bottom line is I'm not going to get a whole lot done and accomplished with 2 nails in my hands. But put the nails in Jesus' hands, and he saves mankind for all eternity. He gives us the opportunity to live forever with him in heaven once our time on this earth is done. What a difference it makes when we take something and put it in his hands and not ours. Ours are so limited compared to his. And, you start thinking about that. Whose hands are you putting your faith, your trust, your hopes, your dreams, your problems in? Are you putting them in yours with your knowledge, your education, your experience, your belief system? Or are you putting it in the timeless hands of God, the one who knows everything, knows your thoughts, knows your path, knows what's going to happen, knows the day this ends on this earth? Put it in God's hands. Your worries, your problems, whatever it is, if you'll put it in his hands, you've got it at the right place. You've got it where it needs to be. It's amazing when we get things into the right hands, God's, things come out just fine. Thanks for listening. Share this, save it as a favorite, and put your faith and your life in his hands and trust him to take care of you. Thanks for listening, friends. We'll talk to you more later.